So Maurice Hooker ends the undefeated streak of Terry Flanagan. Going into this fight, Terry Flanagan was undefeated, and Maurice Hooker himself was undefeated. Many people felt that Terry Flanagan would win this fight, but I would imagine many people were picking Terry Flanagan to win. This was for, I believe, the vacant WBO strap. I believe this fight's taking place at 135 or 140. Please correct me if it's 135, 140. I haven't really been paying attention to this fight, but I saw the whole fight just now on Showtime Boxing International. Shout out to Showtime. First of all, this was a very close fight. Very close fight. When it comes to me personally, I've always felt that both Maurice Hooker and Terry Flanagan were not really that good. Like, when I say not really that good, I feel like they're not world level. I've always felt like, in my original channel, I made a video saying that Terry Flanagan wasn't that good, and I called him a cherry picker. Any of my OG subscribers will probably remember I called him a cherry picker because I was never impressed with Terry Flanagan's selection of opponents. And when it comes to Maurice Hooker, he looked terrible against Darius Perez. I thought he looked terrible. Like, that was just a horrible performance. I saw when he fought Darius Perez live, and I remember just feeling so like, ugh. I wasn't impressed. But in this fight, particularly in the second half of the fight, Maurice Hooker showed a lot more determination. In the Darius Perez fight, he wasn't showing determination. He was showing lack of determination. He was kind of fighting like a sparring partner. And yeah, that's what I felt. I felt like he was fighting like a sparring partner. But against Terry Flanagan, he was bringing out more of a dog in him. This was for the vacant title. Like I said, this was a close fight. You could have had it gone to Terry Flanagan. It was one of those fights where you could have had Terry Flanagan winning, or you could have had Maurice Hooker winning. It was one of those very close fights. Terry Flanagan, got cut in the side of his, I believe, right eyebrow and in the center of his forehead by two headbutts that were caused when both of them collided with each other. But when Terry Flanagan and Maurice Hooker collided with each other, it was unintentional, but they collided and he was bleeding, and basically throughout the whole fight he was bleeding. But like I said, this was a kind of a, Terry Flanagan was doing a thing where he was going in and out, but then he was staying in the pocket. I felt when he was going in and out, I felt he was more effective that way. I felt he was winning the rounds more. But when he elected to stay in front of Maurice Hooker, that's when Maurice Hooker was landing on him. Maurice Hooker was, Maurice Hooker is a really tall guy. I believe he's like 5'11", and he has a very ridiculously long reach. He has like an 80-inch reach. Terry Flanagan has a 70-inch reach, 71-inch reach, so he had the reach advantage, and he kept catching. Maurice Hooker kept throwing a lot of uppercuts, and he was catching Terry Flanagan. I think at times both of them, Maurice Hooker kind of looked clumsy at times, where I believe, Terry Flanagan was more of the guy who was throwing the eye-catching shots. But like I said, there were times where Terry Flanagan just looked exhausted and he wasn't letting his hands go. And when he wasn't doing that, Maurice Hooker was letting his hands go, and he was winning. And I thought he was scoring the rounds. Like I said, this was one of those fights that were very close. But I'm not going to complain. Maurice Hooker won. And, what this fight showed me is I don't think Terry Flanagan, this basically fight showed me, it confirmed to me that Terry Flanagan isn't world level. Because I've always felt that he wasn't world level. And that's why they've been putting him in there with guys that are very low level. Like, my biggest complaint with him has been his selection of opponents. Very low level opposition. And I think this fight tonight showed me that he really isn't world level, because, I do not believe Maurice Hooker is world level. Like I said, I've never really been impressed with him. Yet Maurice Hooker gave Terry Flanagan hell tonight. Like, this was a tough fight for Terry Flanagan. He lost the fight, and it was a tough fight for him. He got hit more than he's ever been hit. He was bleeding. He was busted up all over his face. This was a very tough matchup for him. And again, it was against a guy like Maurice Hooker, a guy in the level of Maurice Hooker. Again, I've never really been impressed with Maurice Hooker like that, because I don't think he's world level. I have a feeling once Maurice Hooker fights a guy, because now he's a champion, and now all the guys are going to want to fight Maurice Hooker. I have a big feeling once Maurice Hooker fights a guy who's world level, he's going to get really beat up and schooled in there, because like I said, I don't think he's world level. But I think this kind of exposed Terry Flanagan for him not being world level. Again, I'm not saying he's a bum, but I just don't think he's world level. I think he's like a British level type of fighter. That's what I personally think. This fight took place in Manchester, England, in the hometown of where I believe where Terry Flanagan was born and raised. So Terry Flanagan had all the advantages. He had the hometown advantage. He had the crowd. Everybody was cheering for him. You could tell the crowd was all pro for Terry Flanagan. So he had all the advantages. And Maurice Hooker was the guy traveling, going over there. But he ended up, losing still. So just goes to show you, guys are. Like I said, I just don't think some fighters are elite fighters, and I feel this way with Terry Flanagan, and I feel this way with Maurice Hooker, despite the fact that he won. I feel this way that he's not an elite fighter himself. But yeah, even with the hometown advantage he lost, it's gonna set him back. What Terry Flanagan should do is fight an elite fighter right away, because I've never been impressed with his selection of opponents. So he should just fight a guy who's a top guy in his division right away to get him back in there, and not fight some bum, because that's not going to prove anything. He has to start fighting these world level guys. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say, and subscribe.